Welcome to this new module on the distribution channel evolving landscape. We will learn how we manage from simple to complex distribution channel, as well as the conflicts that may arise. We will later discover what is trade marketing, a collaboration solution between manufacturers and channels. Companies can design their distribution channels to make products and services available to customers in different ways. A channel level is each layer of marketing intermediaries that perform some work bringing the products and the ownership closer to the final buyer. And the number of intermediary levels indicates the length of a channel. Depending on the length, channels can be short or long, and direct or indirect. For example, a zero-level channel that we call also short or direct is a channel where the manufacturer is selling directly to the final customer. For example, the internet, manufacturers' own shops, the mail orders, a home party, a TV, selling the door-to-door, and the specialized sales force. Very complex products, like for example airplanes and weapons, they are sold over by specialized sales forces. The rest of the channels, they are indirect or longer channels. For example, a one-level channel contains only one selling intermediary. The typical example is a retailer. In a two-level channels, it contains two, the wholesaler, for example, and the retailer. And for example, if we talk about Japan, the food distribution may include as many channels as, for example, 6. However, most companies use a mix of both channels simultaneously. And the length depends in different factors. For example, the nature of the product. The more complex the product, the shorter is the channel. For example, selling mainframes versus PCs, no? Or for example, big ships versus small boats. There is another factor, the nature of the client. The more complex the client, the shorter the channel is. For example, private banking would be a short versus retail banking that is much longer. And also with Coca-Cola, for example, it's not the same having as a consumer Carrefour than the individual drinking Coke. There is a third factor that would be the complexity of the purchasing process. The more complex, again, the shorter the channel. No? We use, for example, sales forces in these cases. As we said, it's not the same selling, for example, PCs to a large governmental agency with complex bureaucratic procedures versus selling PCs to individual consumers. The fourth factor would be the maturity of the consumer. The more mature the consumer is, the stronger the channels are. The quintessential short channel to serve mature consumers is the online channel, where a company connects directly with the consumer. And if we talk, for example, about traditions, habits, legislation, physical concentration or dispersion of the population, education level, weather, all these elements also influence the length of the distribution channel. For example, the population density and habits, sales through catalogs in the US versus Europe. In the US, the big geographic areas with dispersed population force the American consumers to buy over the catalog, facilitating also the migration to internet. Or if we talk about weather, sales over the internet are favored in these countries with bad weather. People prefer the convenience of buying online instead of going on. So this would be, for example, the example of Nordic countries, whereas the Mediterranean. Or legislation. In Europe, there are many long traditional channels that are protected by law. This is to protect to the small and medium enterprises. There could be another factor, for example, that is education. The higher the educational level, the consumer is going to have a higher penetration, also the direct or short online channel. And we can see that in the Scandinavian countries, the penetration of internet is much bigger than in the Mediterranean ones. I look forward to seeing you in the next class, where we will evaluate the multi-channel strategies and how we can succeed in the omni-channel marketing.